Okay, good afternoon. We're going in just a second. We'll take a look at stocks and see how we did. Okay, so to those still following this, and I do get people messaging. I haven't really taken a position in anything new in a while. I'm sitting on Viacom and VipShop, which is a Chinese retailer, but Viacom up again today because Sherry Redstone, who is the owner, Redstones have owned CBS forever, announced basically that somebody tweeted that they're basically looking for buyers. So it's basically a public request for bidding. So somebody at some point will buy it, which is the reason I own the stock. I think it's a good stock and a great company anyway, but the reason I own it is I think at some point in the near 3 to 6 months, somebody buys it. And the reason is because with everything going from our legacy TV channels, CBS, ABC, NBC, the need for streaming is key. So Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus, they want content. They want shows. And what CBS has, what Viacom has, is 50, 60 years of movies and shows that could be content on one of those streaming companies. So you have Netflix at the top. We'll talk more about Netflix a little bit. And then you have Amazon going for it, Disney Plus with a massive move this weekend, and we'll talk about that as well. It's important because the way we watch TV and the way we take in content, movies, what have you, is drastically changing. These companies that own these huge streaming services also own the news. They also own CNN, or like Comcast owns CNN. They own NBC. So there's a connection between the revenue that comes from the news sites and the revenue that comes from movies and comes from streaming platforms. They're all one company. And when you take out Comcast, Disney, some of these in Viacom, those are the three huge conglomerates that control most of what we take in from an entertainment standpoint and from a news standpoint, although there's not much of a massive difference anymore. But from a stock standpoint, that bumped up Viacom today, so I'm pretty happy. I still think it should be in the $47 range. It's $43.44. So I'm going to hold on to this, and hopefully in the near future there's some significant news that we'll discuss. VipShop is about even today, so there's nothing earth-shattering. I did short Amazon on the open and did well on that. It was about $17.50 when I shorted it, and it's about $17.18 now. It actually got down under $3,700. I'm sorry, at one point today, so it was a good move. In any event, I have not been posting that as often as I should, and I apologize for that. And I will do that down the road. Now, I was asked, and I want to read this to you specifically because the Branford Rotary last year we had, was it last year? Yes, last year we had something called Braffle in Branford. I think other towns are now copying that. And it's basically a raffle where you can get $100, do I have this right? $100 gift cards to each of 50 different Branford restaurants. So I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I can name 50 Branford restaurants. So the first prize is a $100 gift certificate to 50 different restaurants. They said the ridiculous second prize wins $50 cards to all 50, and there are 8 more prizes. So, what's interesting about getting $100 gift cards to 50 restaurants is obviously you're never going to keep that, right? You're going to give some of those away. So that's how you let people know what restaurants you don't like. Like if you get the gift card to some place from me, then you'll know I'm not really interested. I'm not giving you the gift card to Le Petit Cafe. It's not happening. It makes no sense. I'm clearly not giving you the gift card to Hornet's Nest. I'm there all the time. But if you see me on the street or you see us on the podcast, we're giving away a gift card to some restaurant, you could probably jump to the conclusion that, Steve doesn't like that place or isn't a big fan of that place. So also they list them here. So in this press release, 50 restaurants, we're going to list them all. Le Petit Cafe, Home, good. Guacamoles, Lenny's, Pasta Cozy, The Stand, Rosso Vino, Parthenon Diner, China Garden. Where's China Garden? I'm guessing that's just one of the takeout places. Hornet's Nest, Darbar, G-Zen, Tommy Sullivan's, Thimble Island Brewery. Are they a restaurant? Well, I guess we're putting them in that category. Dockside, USS Chowderpot, Donovan's Reef, Marco's, Allegra's, Il Forno's, Siam Orchids, Local, Campai, Jalapeno Heaven, Gennaro's, La Monaco's, Basilio's, Colin Daisy's, Yukiyama, La Luna. Oh, there are a lot. Doma, Breakfast Connections, Rosito's, Mosaico. Mosaico, a lot of people don't know it's there. Phenomenal ribs. It's right across from Doma, right next to the jewelry, Branford Jewelers. Phenomenal ribs. It's like authentic Venezuelan. In fact, their social media pages are in not English. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but it is what it is. Dragon East, Sam Siam, Crostini, 9 East, Branford Townhouse Restaurant. That's a diner. Arturo's, which was Coffee Con Canela, Capone's, Eli's, G.W. Carson's, Pompeo's, Stony Creek Market, which now has pizza, by the way, and I heard it's quite good. Thimbleberry, G Cafe, P&M Deli, Cafe. Well, we have a lot of restaurants in Branford. So for tickets, go to Braffle, BRAFFLE.org. They're $20 a piece. The majority of the proceeds, I'm reading directly here, go to Branford Counseling and Community Services Basic Needs Program, which helps families in need with food, rent, and utilities. In other words, every entry purchased is a win for Branford. I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe the Rotary purchased these gift cards to help the restaurants. I know last year they were purchasing them. So this idea that, restaurants get hit up all the time for free gift cards, right? For every fundraiser on the planet goes to restaurants. And if this is the case with the Rotary where they went there and actually paid for them, I think that's a phenomenal thing. Jamie Cosgrove will pull the winning ticket. His quote, Branford Rotary is an incredible organization. I'm proud to once again take part in the Braffle drawing. Last year, the Rotary raised nearly $100,000 to help out during the pandemic. With most of this year's Braffle proceeds going to basic needs, Rotary is once again showing their dedication and passion for the people of this town. Oh, and I should add Braffle. Yeah, they did a series of videos that were Braffle. So in any event, I've read that. If you're interested, go to braffle.org. I can post a link on Branford 7 later on. Wendy's, hold on. I don't know if I missed it. I'm going to go back and check now. Donovan's Reef. Hold on. Okay, I don't see it. I don't want to say that they're not on it. I just don't see it. So maybe that was missed. If it is, we'll make sure we include them in a future podcast. But in any event, braffle.org, and you can check that out. So a few things to talk about today. Over the weekend, and it's just interesting to see how quickly this change is coming. And it's come from because of COVID, but also the way we see movies and streaming and what have you. Disney released probably the biggest movie it's released in a really long time. And that was, what's her name? The one of the Marvel characters. I forgot her name. But it's just a massive number, $80 million at the box office, over $200 million worldwide, which shows people are going back to the movies. Donovan's Reef. Yes, they did close. They couldn't get kitchen help. I guess something happened in their kitchen where they lost a lot of their help. I don't really know more than that. I hope they're open quickly. Donovan's is a really good restaurant. They have a huge menu, and I know they're open for catering, and they have their sonar room open. But so hopefully they can figure that out and get back open pretty soon. Yes, Black Widow was the movie, and so $80 million, over $200 million worldwide. But the real story was people were willing to spend serious money to watch it at home. If you had Disney Plus, I believe you can pay $20 and you can get it on your TV at home. That brought in $60 million for Disney. So I would say a year ago, everybody was scared to death when it came to content companies. Like, what would happen? We would lose. People are not going to the theater anymore. They're watching TV at home. Netflix is going to kill the theater. Then COVID came, which crushed the theater, destroyed the theater, obviously. But now that people want to go back and this pent-up demand is there, we're seeing not only were people willing to go back to the movie theater, they're willing to spend serious money for movies they want to see at home. And so what used to be, wow, theaters are going to lose money and movie studios are going to lose money, we have a huge indication now this weekend that the opposite may be true, that you may have a massive theater-going audience that still want that experience, at the same time are willing to spend a serious amount of money, $20, to watch it at home. And now they could watch it with 3 or 4 people. That may be true too. But I'm imagining many people didn't just alone spend $20 to watch it. And this is it's kind of a game changer for what we're seeing, the way we take in content going forward. The second thing over the weekend that happened is I started last week binging a show called Manifest. It's on Netflix. It just got on Netflix a few weeks ago or last week or something. And it was one of the top 10 shows for to last for like the 5 or 6 days it was up. Now, let me tell you something about this show. It's truly awful. It's one of the most poorly acted shows I've ever seen in my life. The directing is as if it's a soap opera. It's one of those, like, every time you get close to a commercial, the music gets loud and they stare at someone's face and it's just, and they cut to black. It's awful. The story is nonsensical. And I can't stop watching it. And clearly other people can't stop watching it. In fact, it was been number 1 on Netflix for the first 4 or 5 days that it came up. Just people are watching it and watching more of it and watching more of it. It's an interesting premise where a plane disappears. 5.5 years later, it shows up again. Now, it's been done before. That kind of, if you saw The Leftovers on HBO, which was a great show, by the way, kind of a similar premise where some people disappear. Lost, obviously, is a very similar premise. But this show's bad. It's not a good show. But what is changing in media is because it used to be you ran a show, you put it on NBC, and you had to make advertising revenue from that show. So it ran, and you made money for that hour. And it ran again and made money. If it was successful, you could have that show in syndication, which happens for a lot of sitcoms. For example, all the stars from Friends still make millions of dollars on syndication, repeats of those shows. Seinfeld makes a fortune, and Larry David, a fortune on the restreaming rights for those shows. The Office is in that category. We're going to have bidding wars to run it on Netflix or what have you. And adding Netflix to that, you had a show that wasn't very good. Horrible reviews. But it gets a chance at second life because they can take it now and put it on Netflix. And there are millions of viewers that aren't ever watching NBC or CBS or ABC. They're never seeing this. So on Netflix, they look and say, what's on? They get hooked on a show, like I did, who never watched it. Now, I get NBC. When it first ran, I never watched it. It looked ridiculous. Comcast, we were bored one day, you put it on, next thing you know, 4 episodes went by, and you're just watching it. And it's terrible. But it has changed the game when it comes to content. And so we have a massive new world. And this is part of what I've been looking at today with regards to stocks. How does this impact us? Our viewpoint was always theater will be gone pretty soon. Everybody's going to watch Netflix. What's really happened is theater's going to do great. People are still going to watch Netflix. Shows that didn't work on other channels are now going to also go on Netflix and get second life, which means you can spend more for those shows that you wouldn't spend before. For the viewer, it's more opportunities to watch different things. It also may mean you get more shit, right? There's more shows that are just not very good. And so, here's what happens when you're Netflixing anything. You're on the couch and you watch the first 3 episodes, and for some reason the clicker is not near you, and you're under a blanket and you're looking at the screen, and that thing pops up that says, "Are you still watching?" And you're pissed because you got to get off the couch and go click it. And you don't do any dishes, and you're just sitting around the house, and it's just crazy when you start binging this stuff. That was me the last 4 or 5 days for the most part. So I'm through like a season and a half of this show. It's bad. But I had to stop and think, this is the new content. Shows that are bad have new life repeatedly. And it's not just Netflix. It's Disney. It's HBO Max. It's Paramount Plus. It's all these new streaming services that are happening that are drastically changing the way we take in content. Also, 2-3 years ago, we talked about saving money, right? Cutting the cord. Well, some people did that. That's true. But you still have to pay for internet. And you have more streaming services than ever. From, like we just said, Netflix, HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus coming out, Disney Plus, all of these more streaming services now costing more and more money. So if you save money by cutting the cord and you're adding 5 or 6 different streaming services, at the end of the day, you may not be saving all that much money. So just be careful with that. But it's an interesting thing to look at and ask yourself how you take in content. So many of us talk about not having time in the day when I spent 20 hours over 4 or 5 days watching a stupid, ridiculous show. And I'm not the only one doing it. So it's an interesting world to think about. How that impacts stocks, things of that nature will be interesting. Okay, let's move on for a second. I want to talk about something that's happening in Branford because it's kind of a microcosm for the global warming green debate, I think, in many, many areas. And I don't know why I'm getting a lot of messages. I'll get to any messages coming in that are not on the chat room afterwards. But We have, and it's political, we have people within Jamie Cosgrove and Branford is a Republican. There's many people who think he's a Democrat. The family was a lifelong Democrat. I can tell you he doesn't give a damn. I can tell you from experience, based on his actions in running the town, he doesn't care if you're Democrat or Republican. But what Branford has done was they've taken this highly political issue, global warming. And if you're on the left of that, if you don't agree with us, this is science and you're an idiot. And you're on the right of that, you say there's some truth to it. Well, that keeps changing, and what Al Gore said 10 years ago, 15 years ago hasn't come true, and this is just a hoax. Is it just a hoax? No. Science, the nature of science has changed. So saying I believe in science and if you don't believe in us, you're an idiot is a stupid statement in its own right. So both sides are using this for political gain. But Branford has been one of the most green, environmentally friendly towns, especially since Jamie Cosgrove became the first selectman. And if we look at why and how, it may be a better way to look at this issue internationally, at least statewide or throughout the country. Because instead of making it that political, do you believe in the science nonsense, and the other side's a hoax nonsense, don't we just want a cleaner town? Don't we just want a cleaner country? Isn't it better when we have energy efficiency? Isn't it better when we save some money on electrical costs or whatever the energy is? And the approach that Cosgrove has taken, and many people on his team, not all, because there's still some Republicans that are yelling and screaming about this, is that having a clean town, having open space, having trails, having energy efficient buildings, these are all part of what makes Branford attractive. They're part of economic development. And that's a very different approach than we ever hear nationally. We never hear that approach. It's, if you don't agree with us, you're stupid. If you don't agree with the science, you're stupid. Well, science is about taking evidence, finding conclusions on that evidence, and then constantly challenging that conclusion. It's not about this is fact, let's go with it. It's about this is where we are now, and we're constantly challenging that. And that's what science is. This idea that you agree with us or don't is a nonsense statement. And that's part of the crux of that political battle. But Branford has taken a very different approach. We want a clean town. We want more trails. We want more open space. At the same time, the key word is balance. So you also see a spectacular amount of development happening in Branford, in my opinion, for the better. Days Inn, a hotel chain right across from the Parthenon Diner. That was a regular stop by Branford police officers, is being taken down. Chuck's Margaritaville is being taken down. Key Bank has already been taken down. That will be high-end apartments. The same people, that's Merritt Apartments. Not Merritt. Is it Merritt? No. The same, what's the name of his company? I don't know. I forgot the name of the company. They're high-end. They're all over New Haven. They're in Milford. High-end, high-class, right off the highway. It makes a lot of sense to have their amenities-driven apartments. Yes, they're going to be expensive. Those are not going to be $1,400 apartments. They're probably in the $1,600 to $2,400 range apartments. But that's a massive improvement. That's development along Route 1. We will have very soon development near the train station, where Maritoli and Saks are building their apartment complex in higher-end, nicer condos, a huge help to the tax base. We have Aldi's and Chase Bank going in on Route 1. It makes sense to have a balance. We've had environmental people yelling and screaming about every single one of those projects, but that doesn't make any sense. We've had anti-environment people or anti-green people yelling about all the environmental stuff that's happened in the town, because that's happened in key areas. And thankfully, Cosgrove has said, let's have a balance for our well-being, to have a cleaner town, to have development that makes sense, to increase the tax base, and increasing that tax base helps us to acquire open space, helps us put more trails in. Otherwise, when we took down Branford Hill School, we could have sold that, a few $1 million to a developer. But by being financially sound and developing key areas along Route 1, we're able to protect other areas that people want as a park. We can take the Tabor property and not develop it, not put fields there, not do more there. We can put trails and labyrinths and a nice seating area around Chet's Pond and maybe grow that into more trails. This is the balance that can happen in a town when we leave that narrative behind of either you're with us or you're against us. You're stupid if you don't agree with us. Instead, say, wait a minute, I want to live in a cleaner town. And to live in a cleaner town, I realized that balance would mean allowing some areas to be developed, allowing some building and development expansion to happen, and at the same time, using that financial freedom that comes with that to preserve other key areas. The town could have made a fortune selling Branford Hills. They probably still can make a fortune selling the Tabor property. They're not happening. They're preserved because we've allowed development in other areas. Branford has changed the narrative that dominates this discussion worldwide. And certainly in America, where it's left versus the right, you're with us or you're against us, you hate us or you love us mentality. And so if we saw more of that, to the Republicans who are fighting everything, hold on a second, I want a clean town. I don't see a problem with a clean town. To the Democrats who then go fight development, hold on a second, allowing development also allows us the freedom to keep a clean town, to keep open space, to keep those trails, to keep promoting those things. When we have that balance, we have a better economic base to attract people to Branford. And if anybody's looking at the real estate market, attracting people to Branford is one of our huge strengths right now. And so I just wanted to bring out, during the campaign 8 years ago, we talked about balance. There was fighting against Costco, and Costco didn't come because Costco pulled out, but there was fighting against that. There was fighting against every development that happened. But those developments that happen in key areas allow us the financial flexibility to maintain and preserve other areas. We don't have to have the political battle. So at meetings now, there are people who are largely blowhards or elected officials who are desperate for attention, yelling about the green cult and the people. I'm fine with green. If there is a green cult, I'm in. If the buildings we put up are energy efficient, yeah, I'm for that. If we run a plan to make our current buildings more energy efficient and cleaner, yeah, I'm for that. If we want to put more trails in Branford, more open space in Branford, yeah, I'm for that. If we want to keep Tabor privately owned and not developed, if we want to keep Branford Hills privately owned or publicly owned and not developed, I'm for that. That makes sense to me. I want to live in a clean town. I don't want Teslas made here because that's dirty. But if we all had electric cars, is that so bad? So at the end of the day, one, we're lucky that we live in Branford. And if you're a town that's not in Branford, this should be a good example for what it really can be. Being green, yelling insults at town meetings at people who want to be green, or a first selectman. I heard one person on the Republican side, Jamie sold us out. He's given way to this green cult. No, he hasn't. He's created a cleaner town. So much so that we created a fund for coastal resiliency, where we didn't say, I believe in global warming. I don't want to have that conversation. We have storms. We have aftermaths of those storms. Whether we like it or not, there's going to be some areas that the town should either buy or not develop on. This is normal. It doesn't have to be the political debate. The idea was so good that Cosgrove's opponent in the next election is literally running on things that Jamie Cosgrove passed. That's how good the idea is. We don't have to have this political debate that we have nationally. We don't have to have the left or the right, or do you believe in science nonsense. I like a clean town. I like a clean state. And I'd like a clean country. And if we could take the balance that we're seeing here in Branford and apply that everywhere, it would help us so much in moving forward as political people or as Americans in general. I don't know if we can get it ever past our borders, but it makes sense to look at this as a balance issue and an economic development issue as opposed to a left versus right issue, because the left versus right issue isn't working. Okay, that's my rant for today. We will be back tomorrow. If there are questions, if there are comments, I know I've gotten a lot of questions about particular developments, what's happening in certain places. I'll get more specifics for those. I have quite a few people have contacted me on a 12 or 14 house subdivision in the Indian Neck area, not far from Tabor. I have done quite a bit of research into that. I'll talk about that in a little more detail. Based on what I've seen, I don't think it'll pass, but we will talk about that tomorrow because I've gotten a lot of questions. Again, questions, comments, anything, send them in, and I will be glad to talk about them on air. Get your Braffle tickets, braffle.org. And I will talk to you tomorrow at 4 o'clock, guys. I hope you have a great night.